Hey everyone, hope you're doing good out there. So, today we are going to be going over how you can use culture and history to help your player characters with their background stories. So, in my experience as a DM, if you really want to get your players invested in your story, they have to be invested in their character. Good player characters want to be invested in your game. But it's up to you as the DM to show them how to be invested in the game. So we're going to kind of cover that because we're going to be talking about culture and history and how you use those to inform your player characters of potential background stories, ways to get invested in the game. So when it comes to character background stories, one of the most common tropes is the tragic background story. And the reason why people use this one so commonly is because they want to be invested in your game. And one of the great ways to become invested in your game is to introduce some sort of conflict, right? And that's what they're trying to do. But even after a while, the trope can become obviously overused. So a tragic background story becomes kind of less and less tragic the more you use it, right? It's kind of like tragic background story inflation. If you use any background story too much, eventually they're all going to just feel generic. And when your player characters think that they have a very generic character, they're going to try to figure out other ways to have fun with him. And that usually involves stuff that is not related to the plot line that you've set out for them. So it's a good idea to introduce culture and history of whatever, area your player decides their character comes from, because it's going to reinvest them in the game. All right, let's go over an example. Here we have Maroon Khan. For this culture, I was thinking about a hybrid between the Zulu nation and the Mongolian hordes. So while there isn't a lot of cities in this country, there is a lot of people. And that's because most of these people are pastoral. They move around with their herds throughout the entire country, depending on what season it is. So the first question that I would ask my player character is, are you from one of the traveling tribes of Marundu Khan, or are you one of the city folks? Cultures like these also tend to have a rite of passage ritual. So I would ask them, well, have you gone through that yet? If they say yes, then I would honestly have them come up with what kind of a rite of passage it was. Maybe it was hunting a, giant megafauna type creature or something like that. But I just let them come up with it themselves, right? The more invested they are in this place, the more invested they're going to be in their character, and the more invested they're going to be in your plot line. Then you can tie in your player character's background story with the history of the area. So here with Maroon Khan, it used to be just a shattered land of many multiple tribes moving around and just fighting each other until, let's say 20 years ago when the great Khan, Marundu, came by and conquered all of the tribes. So if it was 20 years ago and you have a player character, how did that story affect his life? Maybe he wants a tragic background story. Maybe that tragic background story is that Marundu killed his entire family and now he seeks revenge for it, and he wants the title of Khan. The more they invest in that story, the more they're going to want to play out the plot line. Of course, you're probably going to have more than just one player character, and it's not a good idea to center a campaign solely on one of those player characters. The rest of them are just going to be like, why the heck am I here? Instead, it's better to actually take turns having each one of your player characters sort of be the main driver of one of your campaigns. So maybe that player character from Marundu Khan has actually been banished to the free colonies of New Hope. And now he's got to help out the free colonies if he's ever going to want to get home to help himself. See, now you've invested your player character long term, because while this first campaign might not be about them, right? Marundu Khan is just north of here. So maybe the next campaign will be about them. Your player character from Marundu Khan might decide, yeah, I'm going to help out these guys from the free colonies, but I'm only going to do it if you help me take back Marundu Khan. So now the player characters are role-playing pretty deep and thus investing further into your story. Then you can add even more conflict into your player character's decisions, which I really like doing because it really inspires role-playing, and it's super, super fun as a DM to watch your player characters like argue it out. I don't know. I kind of enjoy it. So maybe after the player character from Marundu Khan is done helping out the free colonies, what happens is they hear that the undead of the Broken Lands are also up here. And another player character is from the clans of Doln. So now you have to decide, oh, are we going to go to Marundu Khan and help this guy become Khan? Or should we run up to the clans of Doln and help them right now before it gets really bad? Well, the guy from Marundu Khan could say, well, if I'm Khan, then I can send, the hordes up to conquer the cult of Torgul. Now your player characters are going to have to decide what's more worth it because the clock is ticking. So you see kind of how all of this plot just came around because one character just decided he wanted to be from Marundu Khan, and his background story is now directly affecting the course of the game, right? And these are the sorts of things that are going to invest your player characters into your world. So I highly, highly suggest it. All right, let's go over one more example. So here we have Antastra. I based the people of Antastra off of the Germanic tribes in the classical era that fought off the Romans. Except in my version, we have, my version of the Romans, the Hastati Empire, which actually successfully conquered Antastra. But eventually a civil war broke out and Antastra was then able to break away. But of course, the Hastati left behind something pretty important, and that is infrastructure and an organized political body. So we have some Antastrans that want to continue with this political body and with, the continuation of this new type of Antastran civilization. Whereas you also have the old breed who want to go back to the ways of the tribes. If that player character grew up during the reign of the Hastati, maybe he got used to some of the luxuries that came along with a more modern civilization. Maybe he actually likes the new government, right? Or maybe he's been out in the tribal lands fighting the Hastati with his parents for who knows how long, right? How's that going to affect that player character? How is this character's background story and culture going to affect gameplay? All right, so I think that just about covers it for today. If you guys want a copy of this map to use for yourself or for one of your D&D campaigns, hey, feel free. I got it on my Twitter, so you could just head on over there and download it. Also, if you guys want to help me come up with some more culture or some more history and stuff like that, we got some pretty good threads going on in the last videos. So I'd love to hear your input on all of that. All right, guys. Well, if you liked it, press some buttons for me, all right? All right, talk to you soon. Peace.